Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Safari Mack Explores North America. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Just a few more weeks till the end of 2024, and we can say hello to 2025. And I don't know about you, but I'm certainly ready to end this year because it's been a bit of a long roller coaster. But never mind that. Let's focus on the positive and get ready for the next year. So let's get back to it. We are leaving and saying goodbye to the bears, to the grizzly bears, and we're heading back up north towards somewhat of the Arctic Circle region, or at least here in the Seaward Peninsula, where here is the perfect habitat for an animal that's pretty iconic around this time of year. And no, I'm not referring to this. No, this guy, the caribou, otherwise known by their Latin name of Ragnifer tarandus. So let's get ready and see exactly how this creature became so iconic with the time of Christmas season. Of course, though, before we begin, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Check out my Facebook page for content on conservation. And if you have a question about animals, or if there's an animal that you want me to do in the future, all you gotta do, just send me an email, which you will find the link to down in my description below. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get started. Let's start with their family and their evolution. Of course, we've already covered another member of this creature's family earlier during our time in Alaska, the moose. So this animal, the caribou, is a member of the Cervidae family, or basically the deer family, which can be found basically all over the globe, except of course for the continent of Australia and the high North Pole and anywhere of the South Pole. Now here's a little something that I'd like to disclose for you, just so that there's no more confusion for you. Whether you're here in North America or here in Europe, basically these animals actually are the same. Here in North America, we call these creatures caribou. In Europe and other parts of the world, we call them reindeer, but they basically are the same animal. They're the only member of that family that actually has a special kind of feature, which I will reveal near the end of this episode. Now, the caribou can basically be found all across the northern regions, so northern Europe, Russia, parts of northern Mongolia, and of course in North America, Canada, and Alaska. Now, it's said that these creatures were thought to have originated in the Beringia region, or the area where once the land bridge between Asia and North America once connected, around 2 million years ago. So these creatures are actually a kind of New World deer, and originating in North America, with their fossils dating back at least around 1.3 million to 1.8 million years ago. They would branch out and cover the rest of the globe by crossing from North America, while some stay behind, to other spots like I've already mentioned. Now, here in Alaska, there are said to be a couple kinds that I would like to identify for you. This is the barren ground caribou, or the Arctic tree-lined caribou. And then these creatures this subspecies lives in the boreal forest and are also known as the woodland caribou. But for today's episode, we're just going to focus on caribou as a whole, especially those that are living in the Arctic region, so the Arctic Circle or the tundra. So let's go into their habitat, social life, and family life. So the Arctic tree line is the one that hosts the Great Migration, that is actually considered to be number one in the top of the world, while the second Great Migration rave would be those in Africa with the wildebeest. But of course, we're just talking about caribou. So the tree line, the Arctic tree line, are those that go on a migration in herds of thousands, right? Now, unlike their cousin, the woodland caribou, their numbers are not quite as numerous as you may expect. Now, so let's get back to the Arctic tree line variety, or as we like to call in biology, the ecotype, or subspecies. So these creatures often gather in huge herds from anywhere from around 50,000 to 500,000 during the spring migrations, where they travel all together to get to their summer and eventual breeding or calving grounds. And being in the Arctic, these guys have to be on the move. They cannot stay still, because if they do, they risk death. We can risk death too if we were out there. See, mosquitoes are crazy up there. You think you've got it rough where you may live with mosquitoes? If you were to stay still in an Arctic meadow, these guys would suck you dry and you would be dead within just 30 minutes. Count it, 30 minutes. You're gone. So you think you got it rough? I think these guys have it even more rough. So no wonder they're constantly moving. But of course, during when it gets close to the autumn time, these herds often then stop being a huge herd and will kind of get back into their smaller groups, and this is when they begin to look for a mate. So during this time, at least during the winter, the reindeer will travel to the more forested regions where they're able to forage for food under the snow. By the spring, they leave these winter grounds and then head up to go to their calving grounds. So to calve, females have to travel to isolated, relatively predator-free areas, such as an island in the middle of a lake, or lake shores, or even the tundra. And as the females begin to find the right spot to give birth, they have to become extra careful and extra cautious around the males. So around 6 to 7 months ago, the females many females gave birth to their calves, and only 45 days after, usually they say after 45 days of being born, the calves themselves can actually start looking for food along with their parents. But of course, but mom doesn't mind them still suckling them, at least until they become fully independent from mom. Now let's talk about their diet. For starters, I'd like to show you an interesting wild thing. These animals, this species of deer, has hair all over their nose. This helps them to, in a way, warm the air before they breathe it, but also this helps them to really get a good scent in the air when it comes to finding food. So these creatures are constantly looking for a kind of plant called lichen, but they're also known to feed upon moss and grass and even sedges. So some will seek out grass, and some will even look for willows. And of course, using their hooves, they'll dig around in the snow until they can find a spot of grass or food to feed on. In fact, believe it or not, this is considered to be the only large mammal species that fully feeds on lichen. And they need to eat around 9 to 18 pounds of it a day just to maintain their bulk and to keep their metabolism going. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's end today's part 1 episode with their influence in human culture. And yes, I will be referring to the Christmas time, but let's wait a minute on that. For starters, the word reindeer comes from the Old Norse word heron, which means horned animal, and there's actually even a small constellation that's known as Tarendus or reindeer in Latin. So let's talk more about their influence in human society. These are the only species of deer that are not just wild, but also domesticated for human use, for their meat, their milk, their fur, all of it. Even their shed antlers are even used for different uses in tools. We also know them to be able to do much other jobs, like pull sleighs, which of course we know the famous Santa's reindeer, which they were first mentioned in 1821 when New York printer William Geely published a 16-page booklet titled A New Year's Present to the Little Ones from 5 to 12, Part 3. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for today's episode, so be sure to join me for Part 2 next week. And until then, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there.